Hi, so my name is Stephen Ajayi. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, great. So I'm the founder and CEO of Scout4. You might know me as the tallest entrepreneur in the tallest office, as Tyler stated. But what we're working on is actually making it easy for talent to find work they love and organizations to find talent that would love to work for them. So I'm going to actually keep this pretty short so that we can show a little bit of a demo and then keep it open for questions. But we're really dealing and solving work culture for the collective ecosystem of Portland. That's what we're working on. So the ecosystem will grow over time, hopefully, other cities, other things, but starting locally and allowing people to find the companies that align with their values and whose values, and understanding what their culture is internally and what they actually value versus what their branded values may be. So raise your hand if you have ever had the experience of taking a job you thought you were a really good fit for, and then found out after you got hired, it was not the right fit, although you don't have to say if it's actually the company you're currently working with. That is what we are solving. So we're going to go into a demo real quick, and we're not going to be able to go through the whole game, but I will show a piece of it and explain what it is that we're getting from that game. That doesn't look right.
Tube that's coming to help.
Experiencing technical difficulties. If you bear with us for 1 second, you back up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we can go from here. So what's happening right now is, from the perspective of a talent user who is looking for work, I am actually dragging the values that I consider to be most important and least important, which basically is allowing me to see, as the application is essentially looking at what you have strong inclinations towards. So, for example, hard work is something I consider to be least important. And so, not me personally, but this user. So, essentially you're getting your strong emotion about things you actually really either have a strong care for or just strongly disregard. The things in the middle are basically being the things you can compromise on a little bit more within your organization. So after this finished sorting, we'll see a little cool interaction right here. So this is the last one. All right, so the warp happens. And switch back. So basically what this game is allowing you to do is make it a little bit more enchanting. It's an early stage game, but it's making it a little bit more enchanting for you to understand what your values are personally, as well as what it is your organization actually values internally from the employees, not from the management. So if we look at the next slide, this is what's happening from our pilot data. So you have the ideal values of the organization, which is reported by management of what they would like the company's values to actually be, versus the actual values that your employees are reporting is actually within the organization, reporting from their day-to-day experience in the organization. And then you have each talent's individual preferences for what they would like within an organization that was ideal to them. So from this data, you're able to say, okay, here's where we are as a company, and here's where we'd like to be as a company, and here's where we are. And what is the difference between those two things? As well as I, as a talent user, am saying, here's what I'm currently experiencing in my work culture. What would I like to see in an ideal case? And so what we're then able to do is connect people to organizations where they actually are within a certain threshold, a fit for that organization. And so the benefits of that are that you actually are, there's a lot of research to show you're more productive, happier, more engaged. And then you actually, for the employees, that's their benefits. But then internally, happy employees means that more product is getting shipped, more things are being done, and people are staying longer. And so that's a cut on your overall expense for replacing people who are leaving. But more than that, it is that you actually are the organization you're trying to be. And you understand what those are with real metrics rather than feel. Because feel is not necessarily a good indicator of what something is. So we can all have that example of your first date versus your 13th date, if it goes that far. Your first impressions might not always be accurate. So we are saying that we can actually, your first impressions might be wrong and that we can give you better data to accept positions as well as hire for positions. So we're currently in our pilot state right now. We are actually working with 50 companies around Portland in order to validate our data one more time. It's a scientific study. So we're working with a professor from Willamette University who is helping us in IO psychology figure that situation out. And so we are currently still taking companies into our pilot phase. So if you know somebody who you can make an introduction to, who would like to be excited about this product, or you are someone who is hiring a lot and would like to understand what your culture is, please come see me afterwards. And thank you for listening, and thanks for having us. So we are looking for a diverse group of companies. Basically, we don't want to just validate that it works in tech. That's essentially what we're getting at. So you want architecture, you want just anything, so you can basically make it generally applicable to say, I'm looking for a job, here are my values, you fit my values, we can go change the world.
What size?
Small to mid-size preferably, so 3 people to 100, but if you're larger than that, we will not decline your offer to the other. Is really what it comes down to. So questions?
Have you had any companies say that they want to get information on how to align their actual values with their intended values?
So we actually have not had that conversation because we actually say it's blind on both sides. So you cannot see what your company, you cannot actually see what an individual employee fits and say, okay, well, Jay, guess what, you're fired because you don't fit our company values. Ideally, that person would find a company that they care about and want to go work for anyway, and since they're going to go find that work, they're being pointed in the direction of a company that actually they care about. So you can't fire them based on that information or discriminate against them based on that information, but you can see their personal values, and then the organization is blind to that data.
How does this seem to line up with job titles?
Can you repeat the question?
How does this mapping seem to line up with job titles?
So it does not.
Okay.
We're making the case that you actually do not care about the job title at this position. So there's a lot of companies who take care of the hard skills of, do you have the competency to be a JavaScript developer at my company? Do you have the ability to program X, Y, and Z? That's really well taken care of. What's not taken care of very well is, are you specifically the kind of employee who values the same thing that we value in terms of you're going to affect the culture here in a positive direction? Culture is fluid, so it's, I mean, this room has a culture. If we could all work together cohesively is a different question, because that's probably not the case. But you have a culture internally. We're just making that culture be well-defined and allowing people to find those companies that are defined to that culture that they're looking for. Yes.
And just to piggyback off of that, have you found then in the process that the actual chemistry between people, like the employers and the employees, actually matches better?
So we are actually, part of the pilot is we're actually looking at performance inside of the organization. And so what's happening is you can actually, preliminarily speaking right now, you can actually show that top performers in the organization happen to be also really well aligned with the culture, which is accidental right now, a lot of times, right? So you happen to be a person who got hired who fits the culture. So if you can do that across the entire organization, that makes the organization better, and that makes your life better working for that organization.
Last question.
Go ahead.
Are you going to try to run this like Glassdoor, where you're soliciting feedback from general people on the internet, or do you have some way of vetting people that actually work in those companies?
So we are actually looking at the model that I'm actually not really a big fan of Glassdoor, specifically because I think you kind of get Yelp reviews basically. People really loved it, people really hate it. So what's really a lot more useful is to say, here are people who fit the culture of this organization and hear what they have to say. Because if they say, it's really not, I don't like working here because of X, Y, and Z, the X, Y, and Z is not going to be cultural necessarily. What it's going to be is actually the pain points of that organization that you may or may not be able to deal with. So that's a lot more useful to me than don't work at Nike and Sons or something like that, right? So I think that's good on Nike, by the way. Yeah, I think that's a lot more useful data. So we're using it as we're building a SaaS product basically that just connects those situations together.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.